everyone, my name is Felicia Sanchez-Gabiso, and I'm here again to share some stories with you today. So today's story I almost forgot about. It was one of my favorite stories I used to tell many, many years ago, and it's fun for any time of the year, but it would have been fun around Halloween time. Either way, I'm getting to share it with you today, and so I'm so excited. Hopefully, you can gather everybody around you and listen very carefully and have a little bit of fun at the same time. This is the story called The Terrible Dragadabas. Can you say that word? Dragadabas. This is about a monster, right? This monster, the name Dragadabas, is from the word draga. What is draga? To swallow, right? Have you ever swallowed like you're really scared? Well, what do you think that big, giant Dragadabas wants to do to everybody? He likes to swallow people up. Well, not everybody knows about the Dragadabas. I bet you that you've never heard of him before. Well, long, long time ago, there lived a beautiful little abuelita, a little grandmother, and she raised her three granddaughters. Now, her three granddaughters were so sweet. They always helped her out with all the chores, and one of their chores was to mend their socks, their little medias, right? And medias. So sometimes, a long time ago, if you had a hole in your sock, you couldn't always just pop up and go run over to Target or Walmart or whatever store you needed and buy new socks. You know what you'd have to do? You'd have to get them up, sew them, and mend them up and fix them up yourself with maybe a little patch or sew them together. And their abuelita taught them how to do that. And so one day, as they were mending all their socks, she said, "You have been working so hard, and as soon as you're done mending your socks, then I will give you some money to go to the store, the little tiendita, and you can buy some yummy cakes and honey." Now, this store had the best cakes and honey you could ever taste. Oh, they were so yummy. They made them fresh every single morning. So the girls were really, really excited. Now, each of her three granddaughters were different sizes. So she had one granddaughter who was super, super tiny. She called her Chiquita. She was so tiny and small. She even had a tiny little voice. And then her second granddaughter, she wasn't too small or really too tall. She was mediana. She called her mediana. And she was kind of middle sized. And then her last granddaughter, she called her grandota because she was really, really tall. She was grande. So grandotita, grandota, or grande, she would call her for short, was super, super tall. She was the tallest one, but she was super helpful. She would always be able to grab all the things that abuelita couldn't get. So they were all sitting around the little fire, mending their little medias, and pretty soon, well, who do you think got done first? Any ideas? It was Chiquita. Chiquita finished first because her feet were the tiniest. And so her little holes in her socks were not very big. So she finished mending her little socks and she said, "Abuelita, I am done. Can I go to the store to buy some cakes and honey?" Abuelita said, "Okay, here you go. I want you to go straight over there and come straight back. Don't talk to any strangers." Okay. So there went Chiquita, singing a cute little song all the way down the block to the little tiendita. La da dee 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 dee. And she was skipping along, and all the way there, she seemed a little bit concerned because she didn't see anybody around, and usually there were a lot of people. So as she got to the tiendita, she noticed the door was closed. And it was the middle of the day. It wasn't quite evening, but it was kind of chilly out and sunny at the same time. That's why they were sitting around the fire. So she wondered why the door was closed. Maybe it just got cold. So she knocked on the door and hoping that Mr. Garcia, the storekeeper, would open the door. She knocked again, but she didn't hear nothing. She pounded really hard, and all of a sudden she heard loud sound. It said, "Who is it?" It's Chiquita. I want to come inside and have some cakes and honey. Are you okay, Mr. Garcia? And giant voice said, Chiquita, Chiquita, don't you come inside. If you come inside, I will swallow you alive. What? Swallow me alive? Oh, you mean you want me to swallow the cakes and honey because they're really yummy? Okay. So she opened the door. But as soon as she opened the door, she realized that she shouldn't have opened the door. There was no one in there, and everything was really dark. Mr. Garcia, Senor, where are you? She turned around and then out jumped the tragalabas. Ah! She screamed and ran straight out the door and closed the door behind her and ran all the way down the block, but she went in the wrong direction. And so she didn't know what to do. She was so scared. She just saw this big giant tree and climbed up to one of the high branches. And she just stood there thinking, oh my goodness, I don't know what that was, but I don't want to get down from this tree. And so back at home, were her sisters and Abuelita, and pretty soon Mediana finished her little socks. She finished mending her socks, and she said, Abuelita, I'm all finished. Can I please go get some cakes and honey? And so Abuelita said, okay, here you go. Here's some money. You could go buy your cakes and honey, but you know, your sister's taking way too long. Can you make sure she comes back with you? Sure, Abuelita. So there she went, skipping along, singing the same little song. And when she got to the tienda, she noticed the door was closed. She didn't see her sister anywhere, or Senor Garcia. She knocked on the door. Who is it? It's Mediana. Can I come inside for some cakes and honey? And she just walked right in without even really waiting for an answer. And it was so quiet. She didn't know what to do, but all of a sudden she heard breathing. And the breathing, loud voice said, Mediana, Mediana, don't walk any further. If you do, I will swallow you alive. Swallow me alive? Who are you? I am the Tragadabas, and I will swallow you alive, I said. Don't go any further. What's a Tragadabas? Are you playing a joke? Come on, Senor Garcia, where are you? I just want to have some cakes and honey. She started looking around. Chiquita, where are you? And then out jumped the Tragalabas. Ah! Oh my goodness, it scared her so much. She had never seen a Tragalabas. She thought it was a joke. It was terrifying. She ran out of the tienda, all the way down the block, the same direction as her sister. And, well, they must be related because she saw the tree and ran up the tree and climbed up the tree and climbed up to an even higher branch than her sister and just stood there. And they were so terrified they didn't even know what to say to each other. Back at home, Grandota and her abuelita were at home, and she said, finally, abuelita, I'm finished. I don't know why my feet are so big. Now my holes are so big too. But I finally finished. Can I go have some cakes and honey, please? Yes, abuelita. Please bring your sisters back, she said. So she gave her some money, and there was Grande walking all the way down the street, and it seemed a little bit eerie because no one was around. So when she got to the tienda, she did the same thing. She knocked on the door. Senor, Chiquita, Mediana, are you here? It's Grande. Grande, don't you come inside. I am the Tragalabas, and I will swallow you alive. Huh? The what? Senor Garcia, are you joking? Hello? Do not come in. All she heard was this loud, spooky voice, but she never heard of a Tragalabas. She knew Mr. Garcia liked to play tricks. She knew it had to have been one of his pranks. So she slowly opened the door. I'm coming in, she said. But when she walked in, she heard nothing. She didn't hear Mediana. She didn't hear Chiquita. And definitely didn't hear Mr. Garcia or his loud music playing. He normally has. Where are you guys at? Hello? She looked underneath a bench. She looked behind the counter. And right as she was turning around, out jumped the Tragatabas. And he screamed so loud, she got so afraid. She screamed and ran straight out the door, closed the door behind her, and ran all the way down the block, up the same tree, to the highest branch of all. And so, by now, you can imagine Abuelita was sitting at home wondering, where are her granddaughters? And if you know Abuelitas, they won't wait around. Mm-mm. So she said, oh, I guess I better go get them myself. So little Abuelita walked all the way down, all the way to the tienda. And when she got to the tienda, she noticed the door was closed. It's not lunchtime yet. Chiquita, mediana, grandota, Senor Garcia, are you here? She knocked on the door with her cane. Open up! It's Abuelita! Abuelita, Abuelita, don't you come inside. I am the Tragalabas, and I will swallow you alive. The Tragadabas! Oh my goodness. What are you doing in this town? Nobody wants you here. Did you hear what I said? Said the Tragadabas. Yes, I heard what you said. Where are my granddaughters? Abuelita, Abuelita, don't you come inside. I am the Tragadabas, and I will swallow you alive. Oh my goodness. Is that what you did to my granddaughters? Did you swallow them? Oh, Abuelita couldn't believe it. She started crying and she was so upset. She didn't know where her granddaughters were. She couldn't find the storekeeper, and there was an ugly Tragadabas inside. She was sobbing and crying, and all of a sudden, a little abeja, a little bee came buzzing by. Abuelita, what? She goes, why are you crying? Oh, because there's a terrible Tragadabas in there. I don't know where my granddaughters are, and I think he may have swallowed them up. She was so sad. And that little abeja said, I'm not afraid of the Tragadabas, Abuelita. She said, and she flew through the window of the store. And all of a sudden, all you heard was, oh, 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 oh. That little abeja was stinging the Tragadabas all over. And she called all of her buddies, all of her friends to come through the window. And pretty soon, the Tragadabas came running out of the store and all the way out of the town. And those little abejas were stinging him in every single bite, every single step that he took. Can you imagine that? He was giant, and he ran all the way out of town, and he never came back. Well, when Abuelita went looking for everybody, she didn't find them in the store, and pretty soon, everybody came out from the corner of the buildings, from the side of the trees, and they clapped for Abuelita and the abejas. And then pretty soon, here comes Chiquita, and here comes Mediana, and Grandota, all the way down from the tree. And from the very tip top of the tree, guess who was there? Mr. Garcia, the storekeeper. He got scared first, and so he climbed down and he said, oh, thank you so much, Abuelita. She said, thank the bees for me. Without the bees, where would we be? And he invited everybody back to the store to have some yummy cakes and honey. And that's the story of the terrible Tragadabas. The next story I'm going to share with you is a story about a girl who lived a long time ago. And a long time ago, like maybe our great-great-grandmothers or our great-great-great-great-grandmothers lived, they used to travel by covered wagon. And so they would have like a horse and buggy, right? And so we didn't just get into a van or a truck or a car and pack all our bags and then just drive all the way across town like we do now or across the country now. Back then, they would have to pack up a big, giant wagon of all of their belongings. And they had two big oxen that would carry. The oxen are very strong, and they were able to carry large amounts of weight. And so many people had oxen and their wagons to carry them and take them to places all across the country. And so this story is about a little girl named Quintessa. And Quintessa and her family were moving from New York all the way to California. And in order to get there, they were going to have to cross some pretty high mountains. And so on the day of their trip, they packed up all of their belongings and they packed everything in the wagon. Everything, Quintessa said, except her favorite thing. Her favorite thing was so warm and cozy, and she loved it so much because her abuelita, her grandmother, made it for her. She said, I have everything in the back except my favorite thing. I'm not going to put it back there. And so as they began to travel, they finally reached the first big mountain. And it wasn't super big, but it was kind of like a hill. And the oxen, they did such a wonderful job. They pulled the family and all of their belongings all the way up. And as they did that, they finally got over the mountain, right? They went over one big mountain and went all the way up and all the way down. And they were so proud of the oxen. They got to the second one. And when they got to the second one, the oxen were trying their hardest, but it was so high up and everything was so heavy that Quintessa's dad said, okay, we're going to stop right here, and you and myself and your mother are all going to get out and we're going to walk nearby. We're going to walk right beside the oxen in order for them to lift a little bit of weight off of the cargo, and that way they can ride up the mountain. And so that's what they did. They got off of the wagon, and the oxen were able to go all the way up and over the mountain, up and over that second mountain. And they did really good. And so they got back on, and they traveled some more, and as they got to the next mountain, well, this time, even when they stepped off to try to walk over the mountain, the oxen still couldn't do it. The mountain was too high. So her dad thought for a minute and he said, okay, what's going to happen is we're all going to have to leave one heavy thing behind. This one heavy thing is going to have to be from each of us. I'm going to leave behind my firewood, okay? So my firewood, I could always pick up more firewood on the way when we get closer. And I will leave my wooden bench, said Mother. I can always make another one once we get to California. And so Quintessa thought about what she wanted to leave behind, and she thought, I don't want to leave my favorite thing. I will leave my doll bed because I can always make another doll bed. I probably don't necessarily need that. And maybe another little girl will come along on the trail and she can use it. So they left behind their wooden bench, a doll bed, and firewood. And with that, leaving some weight behind, they were able to get up and over that third mountain. They got all the way up and over. And so they got to the next mountain, and that one was even higher than the third mountain. And again, the dad said, we must leave more weight behind. We have to leave a few more things. I can probably leave my snow shovel because there won't be a whole lot of snow in California. It'll be okay. And I will leave my butter churn, said her mother. And back then, a butter churn was this big barrel with a giant spoon that they would stir milk in, and they would stir it over and over and over and make butter. But she said, I can make another one when we get to California. What about you, Quintessa? What are you going to leave behind? Well, I don't want to leave my favorite thing, she said. I'll leave my wooden rocking horse. That's kind of heavy. And maybe we can make another one when I'm in California. Good idea, said her dad. So they left the snow shovel, the butter churn, and the wooden rocking horse. And they were able to make it over that fourth mountain. Now, when they were able to make it over that fourth mountain, they got back in and they traveled a little bit further, and then they came upon, after they got that one, they came upon the highest mountain that they had ever seen. And at this moment, they knew they must leave one more thing behind or else they wouldn't make it. But if they left that one thing, then they would be able to go right over the mountain and there would be their home. So the dad said he would leave his workbench. That's how he made his living, but he was pretty positive he could make a new one when he got there. And Mama, she said, I'll leave my footstool. I can definitely make a new one of those. It's all made out of wood. And Quintessa thought, I definitely can't leave my favorite thing. I'll leave my little toy chest of wooden ducks. Okay. So they took everything that they wanted to leave behind and they left it on the side of the road. And they were finally able to make it all the way up to the other side of the mountain, and there was their home waiting for them. And they were so excited that when they finally got there, they had a new home, and they might have to buy a few things. But when she went into her brand new room, Quintessa looked at it and she said, I'm so happy that even though I had to leave some things behind, I was able to keep my most favorite thing. What do you guys think her most favorite thing was? Any idea? It was the quilt that her grandmother made her. And she snuggled up under it and felt very happy. So I don't know about you, but if you had to travel in a covered wagon and you had to go on a trip like Quintessa, what would you leave behind if everything was too heavy? How do you think it's different nowadays to travel than it was back then with a horse and a buggy? And can anybody tell me what the name Quintessa starts with? The letter Q. I hope you'll have a warm and cozy rest of your week. Maybe you have a quilt like Quintessa that you can cuddle up with. Thank you so much.